Warm greetings from the I-10. It's Everyday Shenanigans. NBC News is the source. 2 former Minneapolis officers sentenced to prison for violating George Floyd's civil rights. 2 former Minneapolis police officers who were found guilty on federal charges of violating the civil rights of George Floyd were sentenced to prison Wednesday. A judge sentenced J. Alexander Kueng to 3 years and Thao to 3.5 years for their roles in Floyd's 2020 death. Both are also required to complete 2 years of supervised release when their prison sentences end. Kueng and Thao were convicted in February of depriving Floyd of his civil rights while acting under government authority when they failed to give him medical aid, and also of not intervening to stop their fellow officer, Derek Chauvin, from using excessive force. These are the 2 men in court today. Thao in glasses and J. Alexander Kueng in front of him. Thank you for joining me. Last week, a federal judge ruled that guidelines for Kueng and Thao's sentences would be calculated in a way that would reduce their potential prison time. The 2 headed into Wednesday's hearing with a recommended sentencing range of 4.5 years to 5.5 years. Kueng and Thao still face state charges of aiding and abetting second-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter in a trial set for late October. On May 25, 2020, Kueng, Thao, Chauvin, and former Minneapolis police officer Thomas Lane had responded to a call about a counterfeit bill from a convenience store in Minneapolis' Powderhorn Park neighborhood when they encountered Floyd, 46. Lane and Kueng, both rookie officers and partners on the call, were on top of Floyd, a black man. The Chauvin applied deadly pressure to Floyd's neck and he gasped for air. Thao had been in charge of crowd control. Floyd's death spurred protests against systemic racism around the world. Kueng did not speak during the hearing. Thao spoke for roughly 20 minutes before his sentence was handed down, making multiple references to his Christian faith in the often meandering address. He did not mention Floyd, nor did he directly address Floyd's family and friends present in court. Throughout this 2-year journey, I've never seen so much corruption in this case, Thao told the court. I thought this was Hollywood. At the end of his statement, Thao said that as a father of three, he could plead for mercy, but said that he instead wanted to ask his friends to turn to God to save their souls. Courtney Ross, George Floyd's girlfriend, said she was disappointed in the sentence and offended by Thao's comments. I'm a Christian and there was no place in court for what he was doing, Ross said. He showed no remorse, not even a bit. Attorneys for Kueng and Thao asked Magnuson to consider in sentencing them that they had been following Chauvin's orders as he was in charge of the scene. Chauvin pleaded guilty in December to violating Floyd's rights and was sentenced July 7th to just more than 20 years in federal prison. That sentence will run concurrently with the 22.5-year sentence he is serving after being found guilty of second and third-degree murder as well as second-degree manslaughter in a state case. Lane was sentenced July 21st to 2.5 years in prison on a federal civil rights charge for his role in Floyd's death. He has pleaded guilty on state charges and faces a hearing in September on those charges. What a mess. A man's gone all over $20 counterfeit bill, allegedly. George Floyd's family has spoken. This is uploaded July 21st, 2022.
I think that it's insulting that he didn't get the maximum amount of time. Because to me, if it was me and that was accessory to murder, they would have gave me the maximum amount of time. And you're a police officer who was sworn to protect, who took an oath, and you didn't get the maximum amount of time. To me, I think this whole criminal system just needs to be torn down and rebuilt. These are murderers. These guys didn't go accidentally push somebody on the ground. They murdered a man in broad daylight. And yet, in his discretion, he chooses to give lighter sentences than he imposed as guidelines. It's ridiculous. At least stick with the minimum that you recommended. Why go under that?
I agree.
It's a slap in the face. My uncle didn't have a gun. He didn't have a weapon. He didn't injure an officer. And he ended up dead. Because he allegedly had a counterfeit $20 bill. Is that what human life is worth today?
Right.
Black human life?
I believe officers should be held to an even higher standard, and yet, once again, we were disappointed by the verdict today. Although I did tell Mr. Lane that I don't think he's a bad person, pardon me, I wanted to stress as well that he needs to be held accountable. Him getting away with anything or getting a light sentence is not going to make things better. He needs to pay his dues, like I said. And I'd also like to point out that if we look back at the beginning of this, Thomas Lane approached Floyd with his gun out. He started escalating the situation from the beginning. I understand that there was moments where he did offer to turn Floyd over, but if we look back, all the tactics he used from the beginning started this entire incident.
Yes.
And I wanted him to be held accountable for that as well.
It's terrible. The negligence that these officers are holding toward humans. All you have to do is be a human being to know that's not right. Let me get you up off of him. It's not the fact that you're a police officer. Just be a human being.
Exactly.
Y'all didn't allow anybody there at that time to render any type of aid.
Yes.
Everybody who was trying to come up, the other officers, Thao, they all were out there saying, no, let him die. And that's the way I took it. This is terrible. And the outcome is terrible just now. So the George Floyd Policing Act needs to be passed because that's the only way that people are going to understand that all lives matter. Because all lives can't matter until Black lives matter.
NBC News Now is the source. That was George Floyd's brother speaking, and before him was the nephew. And yes, all lives do matter. And there's no argument about Black lives. We have always been undervalued as citizens from the moment we came here to America. That's not a myth. And even today, we're still looked upon as a lower grade persons, citizens. That's not a myth. All this could have been avoided. It is obvious when you watch the video of George Floyd that he was hyped up. He did not want to go to jail, no matter if he was in possession of a $20 counterfeit bill or not. He just didn't want to go to jail. That's understandable. And naturally, a person who is either in the wrong or right does not want to go to jail. And as I said, and as his girlfriend has said in this commentary, Miss Courtney, this could have been avoided. Starting with the people in the store. Hey, you were here earlier. You're not allowed back in the store. We believe you were here with someone or yourself passing counterfeit money. That could have been avoided from the jump from the people in the store. 2, if they said nothing, which obviously they didn't because he was back in the store allegedly, here comes the officers who aided. Chauvin didn't seem to care. You could see his expressions during this knee to the neck. One holding back, one holding Floyd's feet. So you aided him. And at some point, someone has to stand accountable, such as the situation in Uvalde. Someone has to speak up to say, hey, this isn't right. We're sitting too long. We need to go in the room. No different than sitting here aiding a man's feet pressed down when he's not moving. As the nephew said, no weapon. So you can't say that the man was resisting arrest because he was lying flat, and it's on video. He was lying flat, not moving, and gasping for air and saying he could not breathe, calling for his mother, telling Chauvin to please get off his neck. How many times did a person need to say it? In 9.5 minutes. How long did you all think it would take before the man would lose air and stop breathing? You could suffocate within 3 to 4 minutes by another person. This video went on for 9.5 minutes. So it was self-explanatory. And the fact that Thao would sit in court and talk about being a Christian and never once looked at the family or addressed them, shows you, yes, he had no remorse for aiding Chauvin and the others in the death of Mr. Floyd. He was only speaking for himself because he's trying to save himself. And to talk about what other people need to do is irrelevant and it's in poor taste. Other people were not there. You were there. So you have to own your part in being there and being a willing participant in the death of a man. The death of a black man at that. And if you don't address the family, that shows you don't have any remorse for your actions. You should stood firmly and look these people in the eye to say, I apologize for my part in not aiding Mr. Floyd with medical help. Not telling Chauvin, okay, that's enough. He's not moving. Let's get him up. You see, there were too many people there for this to have gone on. This wrangling with the car, him going in and around the car, pushing him through the car. He couldn't fit in the car, the SUV. All that was ridiculous. You knew he was a tall man from the beginning. You should have put him in a paddy wagon. End of story. You all knew he couldn't fit in that SUV. So you see, everything has a start and a finish. And your part in a story is your part. Can't blame other people. The store had a part. If they thought the man was passing a bill or came back to pass a bill 2 times, however it went, they had a part as well. And when the police stepped up and intervened, they had a part. And to be diligent and rough handling a person over a piece of paper, because in the end, that's all $20 is a piece of paper, is ridiculous. Law officials have taken in people who have committed heinous crimes and they didn't have a scratch on them. Sadists, rapists, child molesters, robbers, murderers. Handcuffed without fault. No brutality. None. Why in this case, a man is kneed for 9.5 minutes and aided by other officers. And then when it's time to go to court, everybody plays possum and act like they didn't do anything wrong. They want to spew out craziness about Christianity and their faith. Where was your faith last May? 2 Mays ago, rather. Where was faith then? Excuse me. Mr. Thao, where was your faith that May? Where was your belief in God and humanity as the brother has spoken? Just be a human. All you had to do was be a human. That May 25th, Mr. Floyd would be alive. Had Chauvin been a human, Mr. Floyd would be alive. And that's the truth. Because you all didn't care about Mr. Floyd. And if this is a racist issue, could be. Considering everybody in the group were different nationalities, they were all mixed in. White man, Chauvin, Lane, white, Kueng, possibly mixed, black and white, and Thao, Asian. So nobody in that group had a right to be racist against anybody. And if you were racist, you were a fool, because all of you were different nationalities. And that could have been their argument too. Well, they're all different races, so they weren't racist. Well, some beg to differ. Mr. Floyd is gone now. And it's on video. And I thank God for the person that stood there and filmed it. Thank you, Miss Lady. Because had that video not been filmed, I believe all of these participants would have walked. There would have never been an indictment and no arrest. And I think we all know that. Because the video proved it with the 9.5 minutes. That there was no way you can say this man was fighting you. And you had to knee him for 9.5 minutes. Because the video ran that long, showing a knee to the neck and officers aiding. End of story. Thank you for joining me. If you'd like to donate to the channel of Everyday Shenanigans, $ Big Angie 129 Cash App. You all have a wonderful week. I will be back with more commentary. Please check out my library for more true crime and breaking news. This is video number 3 for this Wednesday. You all have a wonderful day. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.